blind little black girl was asked to sing at school as a joke, but her voice left the room speechless. The silence in the Roosevelt Elementary auditorium was deafening. 12-year-old Marcus Williams stood motionless in the center of the stage, his small hands clutching the microphone that someone had deliberately adjusted to the wrong height for him. 400 pairs of eyes were watching him, but he couldn't see any of them. "Go, Marcus, sing something rap," shouted Tyler Brooks from the third row, eliciting muffled laughter from his friends. "I bet you know all the ghetto songs." Principal Johnson, sitting in the front row next to the school board, made no move to intervene. Her forced smile said everything about her true expectations for this special performance. Marcus had been invited to the talent show just 3 days earlier when Tyler and his crew discovered that he sang alone during recess, hidden behind the basketball court. It would be hilarious to put the blind kid on stage, Tyler had whispered to Madison Chun, the student council president. Imagine the look on everyone's face when he embarrasses himself in front of his parents. What they didn't know was that Marcus Williams wasn't just a 12-year-old boy trying to survive in a school where being different meant being a target. Born with congenital glaucoma that robbed him of his sight at age 4, he had developed something his classmates could never understand: the ability to hear beyond words, to sense the true intentions behind every invitation, every laugh, every kindness. 3 days ago, when Madison approached him with that overly sweet tone to invite him to the talent show, Marcus immediately saw the trap. Her rapid breathing, the tension in her voice, the muffled giggles coming from where Tyler was hiding. Everything screamed cruel prank. But instead of refusing or exposing the plan, Marcus had done something unexpected. He accepted. It would be an honor to participate, he replied in a calm voice that made Madison hesitate for a second. "I have a special song I'd like to share with everyone." Now, under the merciless spotlight, Marcus adjusted his posture. His fingers found the right position on the microphone with the precision of someone who had practiced this exact moment hundreds of times over the past 3 days. An almost imperceptible smile played at the corner of his mouth, the kind of smile someone wears when they're holding a secret too powerful to reveal before the time is right. At the back of the auditorium, his grandmother Dolores fidgeted nervously in her seat. She was the only person who truly knew Marcus' talent, the only one who knew what happened when that boy opened his mouth to sing. 3 generations of gospel music ran through the Williams family, and Marcus had inherited not only the gift, but the wisdom of when to use it. If this story of prejudice and underestimation is touching your heart, don't forget to subscribe to the channel to find out how a simple moment of humiliation became the catalyst for a revolution that would forever change the lives of everyone in that auditorium. Marcus adjusted the microphone with precise movements, ignoring the laughter echoing through the auditorium. 3 days of meticulous preparation had led him to this moment, but the real preparation had begun years earlier when he learned to turn every humiliation into fuel for something greater. "Everyone quiet," Madison Chun shouted into the auxiliary microphone, trying to maintain the appearance of organization. "Let's give Marcus a chance." The deliberate pause before "give him a chance" drew more laughter from the students who understood the subtext perfectly. Tyler Brooks couldn't contain his satisfaction. For months, he had watched Marcus singing alone during recess, always hidden, always vulnerable. The idea of putting him on the main stage in front of 400 people, including parents and teachers, seemed like the perfect prank to cement his reputation as the school clown. "Oh my God, this is so tense," Tyler whispered to his friends in the third row. "I bet $5 he'll cry before he can sing a note." What Tyler didn't know was that Marcus Williams had been born into a family where music wasn't just entertainment. It was emotional survival. His mother, Sarah Williams, had been a church singer before complications during childbirth, resulted in congenital glaucoma that would rob Marcus of his sight at age 4. During the first few years after the diagnosis, when Marcus was struggling to accept his new reality, it was music that became his bridge to the world. Dolores Williams, his grandmother, was the first to realize that Marcus' loss of sight had heightened his other senses in extraordinary ways. By the age of 6, he could identify people by their breathing. By 8, he could distinguish genuine emotions from fake ones just by the tone of someone's voice. By the time he was 10, his musical memory had become nothing short of phenomenal. He could hear a song once and reproduce it perfectly with his own variations and improvements. "What are you waiting for, Marcus?" Someone in the audience shouted. "Did you forget the words?" Principal Johnson checked her watch again, her impatience evident. She had agreed to Marcus' special performance mainly because Madison Chun had insisted, arguing that it would be important for inclusion. In fact, Johnson knew exactly what the real goal was. She had witnessed similar situations throughout her 15-year career in education, different students being included in ways that only highlighted their differences. Marcus took a deep breath, remembering the conversation he had had with his grandmother the night before. Dolores had held his small hands and said, "Son, they think your blindness is a weakness. They don't know that it's your superpower. Tomorrow, you're going to show them something they'll never forget." During the 3 days since Madison's invitation, Marcus had done something none of the organizers expected. He had meticulously researched every person who would be in the auditorium. He knew the names of the school board members. He knew which parents had recently lost their jobs, which families were going through difficult divorces, which students were struggling with problems they hid behind fake smiles. Tyler Brooks, for example, wasn't just the arrogant bully everyone saw. Marcus had discovered through conversations overheard in the hallways that Tyler was under extreme pressure from his father to get into a prestigious university. His average grades and lack of special talents left Tyler desperate for any form of social distinction, even if it meant humiliating others. Madison Chun, the seemingly benevolent organizer, carried her own burden. The daughter of immigrants, who worked 16 hours a day to keep a small restaurant afloat, she had learned that leading through fear and exclusion was a way to ensure she would never be excluded herself. Even Principal Johnson had her vulnerabilities. Marcus knew she was under pressure from the school board due to low parent satisfaction ratings and that any situation that generated complaints could jeopardize her position. But there was something. None of them knew about Marcus Williams, something he had only recently discovered that would change everything. During weeks of discreet research, aided by his extraordinary ability to overhear unintentionally revealed conversations, Marcus had uncovered information about each of his tormentors that they would never have imagined anyone possessed. The microphone was finally adjusted. The auditorium had fallen into an expectant silence, but unlike the respectful silence that precedes a highly anticipated performance, it was the cruel silence of an audience waiting for a spectacle of humiliation. Marcus smiled slightly. His right hand discreetly touched the small device in his pocket, a digital recorder that had been documenting relevant conversations for weeks. His left hand found the exact position where he knew his voice would resonate with maximum power. Through the auditorium sound system, each new humiliation over the past few months had only fueled the growing determination within him, a silent force being nourished by the very injustice they sought to impose. What those privileged people didn't know was that every act of contempt was signing their own death warrant, and that the blind boy they underestimated
possessed weapons more powerful than any of them could imagine. What no one in the Roosevelt Elementary Auditorium knew was that Marcus Williams had spent the last 3 days executing the most meticulous plan of his life. While Tyler Brooks and Madison Chun celebrated their perfect prank in advance, Marcus had turned his apparent vulnerability into the most powerful weapon he possessed. It had all started on Monday when Madison had issued the invitation in that overly sweet voice of hers. Marcus not only accepted, he asked for details. "What kind of song do you guys think I should sing? Any specific suggestions?" His seemingly naive curiosity caused Madison to let her guard down completely. "Oh, something authentic, you know," Madison had replied, her words laden with thinly veiled prejudice. "Maybe something that represents your culture." Marcus smiled inwardly. Every word was being recorded by the small device he always carried, a tool his grandmother, Dolores, had given him to document any bullying. What had started as protection had become his secret weapon. Over the next 3 days, Marcus carried out an intelligence operation that would impress professional agents. His extraordinary ability to listen to unintentionally revealed conversations, combined with his photographic memory for sounds, allowed him to gather devastating information about each of his tormentors. Tyler Brooks, Marcus discovered, was not just the privileged bully he appeared to be. On Tuesday, hidden behind the lockers during recess, Marcus heard Tyler crying on a phone call with someone. "Dad, I promise I'll get into military academy. I know you spent a lot of money on private lessons." The broken voice revealed a side of Tyler he would never show in public. The crushing pressure of a military father who saw his son as a constant disappointment. Madison Chin carried her own dark secrets. Marcus discovered that she had forged participation certificates for extracurricular activities to impress colleges, using family connections to obtain letters of recommendation from organizations where she had never actually worked. Even worse, she had deliberately sabotaged other Asian students at the school, spreading rumors about them to eliminate competition for minority scholarships. But the most shocking discovery came on Wednesday, when Marcus overheard a conversation between Madison and Tyler in the locker room. They weren't just planning to humiliate him at the talent show. They were secretly recording videos to post on social media, planning to turn his humiliation into viral content to gain followers. "Imagine how many likes we'll get with a blind little girl getting embarrassed," Tyler had said, his casual cruelty making even Madison momentarily uncomfortable. "Tyler, isn't that a little too much?" Madison had hesitated. "Relax, Madison. It's just humor. He shouldn't have agreed to do it if he can't handle the pressure." Every word was meticulously documented on Marcus's recorder, along with precise timestamps and detailed notes about context and location. But Marcus didn't stop at collecting evidence. He went further. On Wednesday evening, sitting in the small but cozy kitchen of his home, Marcus shared everything with his grandmother, Dolores. At 72, Dolores Williams had seen more injustice than she cared to remember, but she had also learned that the best way to fight prejudice was through strategic preparation and the unquestionable demonstration of excellence. "My grandson," Dolores said, her experienced hands organizing the evidence Marcus had collected. "Your mother and I have always known that you have a special gift. Not just your voice, but your ability to really see people for who they truly are." Dolores then revealed something that would completely change Marcus's strategy. For years, she had quietly documented instances of discrimination at the school, building a detailed file of incidents that the administration had ignored or downplayed. As a longtime volunteer at the school library, she had access to information and relationships that could prove crucial. "There's something you need to know about Principal Johnson," Dolores said, her voice low but firm. "She's under investigation by the school district for mismanagement of funds intended for inclusion programs. If one more incident of discrimination happens on her watch, especially something that becomes a public scandal, she could lose her job." Marcus processed this information with the same strategic precision he had applied to his entire plan. Principal Johnson wasn't just a passive observer. She was an active participant in a system that allowed and even encouraged discrimination. And now she had as much to lose as anyone else. On Thursday, Marcus made his most daring move. Using a library phone during lunch, he discreetly contacted 3 local media outlets, including the television station that covered school events and 2 influential community blogs. His message was simple and compelling. A special situation is unfolding at the Roosevelt Elementary Talent Show tonight. You'll want to document this. Marcus didn't specifically mention discrimination or bullying. That would come out naturally. He simply created enough anticipation to ensure that his performance would have a much larger audience than Tyler and Madison had imagined. Throughout Thursday, Marcus watched his antagonists with a new perspective. Every cruel comment, every laugh at his expense only fueled his growing determination. Tyler went so far as to pretend to trip him in the hallways, accidentally knocking his books into a puddle of rainwater. "Oops, sorry, Marcus," Tyler said loudly enough for other students to hear, his fake concern masking his obvious satisfaction. "You should be more careful where you walk." Marcus gathered his wet books in silence, but his mind was calculating. Each additional humiliation would only make his revenge more satisfying and justified. Madison, for her part, had begun spreading concerns about Marcus to other students. "I hope he doesn't get too embarrassed tonight," she said to a group of classmates during lunch, her voice laden with fake compassion. Sometimes special people don't understand when they're being included out of pity. Now on stage in the auditorium, Marcus adjusted the microphone with precise movements that revealed meticulous preparation. His
right hand discreetly touched the recorder in his pocket. 3 days of devastating evidence documented and ready to be revealed at the right moment. Tyler Brooks, sitting in the 3rd row with his friends, had no idea that every cruel word he had uttered over the past 3 days was about to be played back publicly. Madison Chun, organizing papers at the sound table, had no idea that her confessions about academic fraud would soon be in the hands of the appropriate school authorities. Principal Johnson, checking her watch again impatiently, didn't know that. Representatives from the local media were already discreetly positioned in the auditorium, alerted by an anonymous tip about a special event that was about to take place. But there was something even Marcus hadn't fully anticipated, something he would discover only in the next few moments, and which would transform his carefully planned revenge into something much greater than mere personal retribution. As he adjusted his posture at center stage, an unexpected energy began to take shape in the auditorium, as if the very air were charged with anticipation for a revolution no one saw coming. Marcus adjusted the microphone one last time and smiled with the serenity of someone about to rewrite history. "Before I sing," he said, his clear voice echoing through the silent auditorium, "I'd like to share something special with all of you." Tyler Brooks shifted uncomfortably in the 3rd row. That wasn't in the script for the humiliation they had planned. "Over the past 3 days since I was so kindly invited to this talent show," Marcus continued, emphasizing the word invited with subtle irony, "I've learned a lot about my fellow students and about how some people view students like me." Marcus took the small digital recorder out of his pocket and held it up for everyone to see. "Fortunately, I have an exceptional auditory memory, and I also have a habit of documenting interesting conversations." The blood drained from Madison Chun's face. Tyler Brooks tried to stand up, but his friends pulled him back into his chair, realizing that running away at this point would be an admission of guilt. "Tyler Brooks, for example," Marcus said, pressing play on the recorder. Tyler's voice echoed through the auditorium with crystal clarity. "Imagine how many likes we'll get with a blind little girl getting embarrassed." A murmur of shock rippled through the audience. Parents looked at each other with expressions of growing horror. Tyler tried to protest, but Marcus wasn't finished. "And Madison Chun, our dedicated student council president," Marcus continued, his voice remaining calm as he played another devastating audio clip. "It's just humor. He shouldn't have accepted if he can't handle the pressure." Madison was visibly shaking now. Her parents, sitting in the second row, looked at her with a mixture of disappointment and shame that cut deeper than any official punishment. But Marcus had saved the best for last. And our esteemed Principal Johnson, he said, turning directly to her who authorized the special presentation, knowing full well what the real purpose was. The next recording made Principal Johnson turn as pale as a sheet. It was her own voice in a phone conversation she thought was private. Let the boys have a little fun. At least it keeps them out of more serious trouble. And frankly, if the special boy can't handle a little fun, maybe he's not right for our school. The auditorium erupted in indignant murmurs. Reporters who had arrived discreetly began taking notes frantically. Parents rose from their seats, some shouting demands for an explanation. But wait, Marcus said, raising his hand to silence the crowd. I'm not finished yet. He connected the tape recorder to the school sound system, and his amplified voice filled every corner of the auditorium. Tyler, you mentioned that I should know all the ghetto songs. Well, here's one I learned recently. Marcus began singing Amazing Grace in a voice that instantly silenced the entire auditorium. But this wasn't the traditional version. It was a sophisticated jazz interpretation that demonstrated not only exceptional vocal talent, but also deep musical knowledge and flawless technique that rivaled professional singers. Every note was executed with mathematical precision, every modulation revealing years of secret training that no one had suspected. The performance was technically flawless and emotionally devastating, proving irrefutably that Marcus possessed more musical talent than any other student at that school. When he finished, there was complete silence. Then slowly, one person began to clap, then another. Within seconds, the entire auditorium was on its feet in a standing ovation that lasted a full 5 minutes. Tyler Brooks had begun to cry, not out of humiliation, but out of a deep shame at realizing the monstrosity of what he had tried to do. Madison Chun was hiding her face in her hands, finally understanding that she had crossed a moral line that could not be undone. But Marcus had not finished his presentation of justice. Principal Johnson, he said, his voice now carrying an authority that made even the adults pay attention. I would like to inform you that copies of these recordings have already been sent to the district superintendent, the Parent-Teacher Association, and 3 local media outlets that are present tonight. The principal tried to stand, but her legs gave way. She knew her career was over at that moment. I have also uncovered some interesting information about the misuse of funds intended for inclusion programs, Marcus continued relentlessly. Documents showing how resources that should have supported students like me were redirected to administrative office renovations and performance bonuses for specific employees. The final revelation was like a bomb in the auditorium. Members of the school board in attendance began whispering urgently among themselves. The scandal was no longer just about bullying. It was about administrative corruption. Marcus placed the microphone back on the stand with the same calmness with which he had begun. The real tragedy, he said, is not that they tried to humiliate me. It's that they missed an opportunity to celebrate genuine talent because they were too busy protecting their own prejudices. As he walked toward the stage exit, Marcus paused and turned one last time to the audience. To any student who has ever felt different, excluded, or underestimated, your voice matters. Your talent is real, and never let anyone convince you otherwise. The ovation that followed was deafening. Parents rushed to the stage asking to meet Marcus in person. Reporters jostled for interviews. And in the midst of it all, 3 figures remained frozen in their seats. Tyler, Madison, and Principal Johnson, confronting the devastating consequences of completely underestimating the wrong person. What none of them could have imagined was that tonight was just the beginning. Marcus recordings would not only destroy careers, and reputations. They would catalyze a full investigation that would reveal a pattern of systematic discrimination that went far beyond a single elementary school, reaching levels that would transform the entire school district forever. 6 months after that transformative night at Roosevelt Elementary, Marcus Williams was sitting in the most prestigious recording studio in the city, putting the finishing touches on his first professional album. The same hands that Tyler Brooks had mocked now created music that touched thousands of people across the country. The investigation sparked by Marcus recordings had spread like wildfire throughout the school district. Principal Johnson didn't just lose her job. She was formally charged with mismanagement of public funds and systematic discrimination. Her desperate attempts to deny the evidence only deepened the scandal when more recordings surfaced, revealing years of prejudiced comments documented by other students who finally found the courage to speak out. Tyler Brooks faced consequences his family never imagined possible. The viral video from the night of the talent showing his cruel words followed by Marcus' transcendent performance turned him into a national symbol of privilege and bullying. Universities canceled admission offers. His military father, publicly shamed, was forced into early retirement. Tyler spent the next several months in intensive therapy, confronting for the first time the real consequences of his actions. Madison Chun discovered that cheating on academic papers had legal consequences when investigators uncovered the full extent of her lies. Her fake letters of recommendation cost her not only her college admission, but also resulted in criminal charges. Her family's restaurant faced boycotts organized by communities that would not tolerate discrimination, forcing them to sell the business and move to another state. But Marcus wasn't satisfied with personal revenge. The evidence he collected catalyzed systemic changes that benefited hundreds of vulnerable students. The school district implemented strict anti-discrimination policies, mandatory training programs for staff, and an anonymous reporting system that protected students from retaliation. Marcus' story inspired documentaries, academic articles, and nationwide changes in education policy. Music universities competed to offer him full scholarships, but Marcus chose an institution known for its commitment to social justice and diversity. During the graduation ceremony at Roosevelt Elementary, now renamed Dolores Williams School in honor of his grandmother, Marcus was invited as the keynote speaker. On the same stage where he had been humiliated, he addressed a completely different audience: students, parents, and educators who had come from across the country to hear his words. 6 months ago, some of you tried to silence me, Marcus said, his voice echoing with new authority. Today my voice reaches people around the world. The difference isn't what happened to me, but what I chose to do with what happened. In the audience, some chairs remained conspicuously empty. Tyler was in an emotional rehabilitation clinic. Madison was facing legal proceedings in another state. Former Principal Johnson watched from home, unemployed and facing criminal charges. Marcus concluded his speech with words that went viral on social media. They tried to break me because they thought I was fragile. They found out I was indestructible. True strength doesn't come from never falling. It comes from using every fall as a springboard to fly higher. Marcus' success transcended music. He established a foundation providing free musical instruments and lessons to children in underserved communities. His first single, Unsilenced Voice, raised enough money to transform music programs in 50 schools across the country. The most powerful lesson of this whole story wasn't just about individual justice. It was about how one courageous person can catalyze change that protects thousands of others. Marcus proved that the best revenge isn't destroying your enemies, but building something so great that their attempts to tear you down become irrelevant. Today, when Marcus performs in sold-out arenas around the world, He always dedicates a song to all the Tylers, Madisons, and Principal Johnsons who tried to silence us. Thank you for giving us the motivation we needed to prove you were completely wrong about our potential. If this story of transformation through courage has touched your heart, subscribe to the channel to discover more stories about people who have turned injustice into inspiration and proven that success really is the best revenge of